Hi everybody. So it blows my mind that I haven't talked about this yet, but we've never talked about Liverano. Liverano is like one of the first tailors that the Armoury started working with in Hong Kong as on our trunk show system, and they're coming back. They're coming back on Wednesday. I haven't seen them in 2.5 years. I'm really excited to see them, and I thought it'd be nice to talk about what exactly they do. So Liverano, founded by Antonio Liverano and his brother, whose name I've unfortunately forgotten, are specialists in the Florentine cut. If anything, they are kind of one of the pinnacles of the Florentine cut, and what they do with it is very distinctive. It's very beautiful. It's certainly a very special style to us here at the Armoury, and in many ways, it's informed the way we look at tailored clothing for the last 13 years. Okay, it's like that important to us. What is the Florentine cut? So the Florentine cut, this jacket I'm wearing now, is a very typical Florentine cut jacket. Okay, what that means is that it's got no dart. That's the main thing. It's got no dart in the front here. Because typically if this was an English jacket, a French jacket, a jacket from some other part of Italy, it should have a dart here. And rather than having a dart here, it's got a slanted dart off to the side. And what that means is that you cannot waste it quite as much, because when you have a seam here, when you have a dart here, it allows you to take the cloth in. You cannot waste it quite as much, but if you have a pattern like this is a brown watch, which is a variant of the black watch check, the check will be immaculate. It won't get broken up right here. Like these little squares won't turn into little rectangles. Now, because you don't have that wasting of you don't have that ability to waste here, what you have to do is you have to kind of create these visual illusions to make the thing look more shapely. So one thing they do is they always extend the shoulders, right? So the shoulders come pretty far past the bone, yet surprisingly still very neat. That's their own trade secret, how they do it. And in person, it always looks great. And actually on the body, it always feels great as well. So that's one thing. The other thing is the quarters. So the area underneath the buttoning point always curves outwards like this. It's rounded quarters. And with this rounding, where it feels like the jacket's spreading a little bit, between this kind of opening up a little bit and this being a little bit wider, you get much more of a sense of waist on the garment than you might necessarily see if you were just to look at the measurements of the garment. All right? So that is, in a nutshell, kind of what Liverano is all about. Florentine style, the illusion of shape, and lightweight, very comfortable. Oh, and one last thing. The shoulder line on Liverano garments are some of my favorite. Like there's something about them where the way it just hugs the neck and it descends down from the neck point down to the tip of the shoulder. I think they do that so well. I'm gonna run you through a couple of my jackets because I happen to have them and I really love them. Obviously this one is wonderful. I'm gonna show you this navy blazer that I've had for ages. And actually one of the fun things about seeing the navy blazer is that it's a summer blazer. And when it comes to summer blazers, Liverano obviously does half line. But what another interesting feature is he does no sleeve linings. It's funny actually, someone on Instagram today just messaged me to ask me my opinion of jackets with no sleeve lining, like that. So generally, for a summer jacket, if it has no sleeve lining, it's okay. Like we've never really had a problem with it. In theory, you could potentially wear out the joints a little bit faster, but in practice, I don't know, we've never had a customer really do that. So it's a little bit riskier, but it's an acceptable compromise because it does make the jacket feel quite a bit lighter. Okay, now speaking of this jacket, this is a Fox Brothers, I forget the name of it. It was like one of the lightweight jacketings they do. And I really love it. It's been a great summer companion for me for years and years and years and years. And you know, immediately you just notice that shoulder line again. Even though this jacket's a little bit small in this one, because I made it much earlier when I was a much smaller man, the shoulder line still really shines. Like it still fits great around the shoulder, still feels wonderful around the shoulder. It still hugs and gives you that flattering V shape, like that flattering kind of pyramid shape from the tips of your shoulders up towards the head. All right, I'm gonna show you a double-breasted. Their double-breasteds are great. Silhouette is very similar, and I tell you, the line on their double-breasted is really wonderful. The line of the lapel of the double-breasted looks like this is getting a little bit on the small side for me now. Not indecently small, but it's getting there. See, again, you can see that shoulder line. Now, what I want to point out with this lapel, and what I think is really beautiful about it, is the shape of it. It's straight from about here to about 2/3 in, and then it very quickly curves inwards. And I think it's a really beautiful, flattering shape. Like, it allows you to achieve this like very full, very striking shape at the top, but the way it curves down really quickly also just like adds a little bit of flair, as well as helps to emphasize the waist of the jacket a little bit more as well. Typically, the double-breasteds are suits. We very rarely do double jacket blazers, but we do a ton of single-breasted sport coats. We also do a lot of 3 pieces, 2 pieces, obviously. Now, what I want to get to next, sorry, I feel naked about this jacket. I gotta slip it back on. What I want to get to next is Liverano is not just famous for the cut, it's also famous for the taste. So Antonio has been collecting cloth for a long time. I guess in his 60-odd year career, he's accumulated a lot of really interesting cloth, and it slowly gets dripped out through his business. And I wanted to show you a couple typical examples of Liverano's taste in cloths. So this is really beautiful. This is Sportex. It's a heavyweight. In theory, it used to be a very sporty cloth when it was first released decades and decades ago, and now you can kind of treat it as like a good-looking, almost like a flannel alternative with a bit of a rougher, harder handle. Makes for a lovely shape, makes for a lovely 2 or 3 piece. This gentleman here did it as a 3 piece. And this is a reissue of the original Sportex. But actually, Liverano used to have quite a lot of the original Sportex too, which was just a little bit heavier and crisper. So we've got, that's a good example of a Sportex. This is interesting as well. This one happens to be mine. I actually forgot this existed. I haven't seen them in so long, I forgot the damn thing existed. This is a beautiful small gray herringbone. It's a worsted cloth, a little bit crisp, a little bit hard. A lot of their suits tend to be in this sort of style and this sort of fabric. You know, like the overall appearance is always very crisp, as you might have noticed with my double-breasted. Because the double-breasted actually, like this is another piece of vintage cloth for them. This was an Old English cloth. And it's just, it's perfect. And it's really hard to find cloth like this in today's marketplace. Okay, this is something a little bit more off the beaten path. I really like it though. Double-breasted, country-style cloth, but just about enough body to make a trouser out of it as well. And the color is really fascinating. You know, it's somewhere between like a green and an olive, and it's got this rust and this orange overcheck. This one should make up beautifully. I can't wait to see this. Liverano's really good at making quite dandy things as well, especially for the summer. So like this I find really dandy. I really like this. Like just the sort of colors that you wouldn't necessarily immediately think of, but he somehow has an eye for these things, you know, and he puts them in front of you and you get a sense of it and you're like, oh, you know, I'll give that a try. And I tell you, like 99% of the time, it's good to be outside your comfort zone and into his comfort zone because the results are good. I really love it. Like this is obviously a very like we've seen this type of color pattern, this type of scale of pattern, configuration of pattern before, but with these specific colors where you have like an electric blue and then you have like this halfway between a turquoise and a teal, but very, very pale. It's just very sensitive. It's very specific and it's not something you see very often. All right, last one, because I really like this. This is really cool. I love this. You know, this sort of scale of pattern, like this is clearly something vintage, maybe an old Xenia or something like, oh wait, no, it's Old English. It's super interesting because it's navy, electric blue, and then a red in a fairly small scale of square. And for this particular customer, we were doing it as like an outfit, right? So we've got a matching cream trouser to go with it. And I just think it's beautiful. You know, it's gonna be lightweight. It's going to be really comfortable in the summer. It's going to work really well in Hong Kong. I can imagine anybody in a crisp white shirt, even a navy grenadine tie or something like that, strolling around. Very Florence, very Liverano. All right. So that's a very, very little small overview of just what Liverano does, what he's about. But if you'd like to know more, please feel free to leave it in the comments. And Liverano's having this trunk show here in Hong Kong starting Wednesday and running all the way till, Sam, Saturday? Sunday? Saturday. Until Saturday. We are pretty booked up for the weekend, but we still have a few slots on during the week. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.